Hi everyone, we are Team Auto Voices sharing our vision for food secure Pittsburgh. We would like to start with narrating our vision of secure Pittsburgh. It's early morning in Pittsburgh 2050. The city looks nothing like the one I arrived in decades ago, but it feels more like home than ever. I have just woken up and stepped onto the balcony. The air is alive, green, earthy, and tinged with wood smoke from someone baking flatbreads nearby. Edible vines rustle gently outside. The view is vibrant green roofs, fruit trees along sidewalks, the food forest every few blocks. This is our new normal. I have a morning meeting with Lauren, Diane, and Shama. We are planning the next chapter for the city. Lauren's picking me up soon, so I have got a little time for the walk through the garden. This space is our pantry, our pharmacy, our little food lab. We built it over the years, slowly turning reclaimed soil and salvaged wood into something that feeds not just our bodies but our sense of purpose. The okra stalks are tall and proud this season. We have become part of something bigger, woven into a network of neighbors and growers, knowledge keepers, and learners. At the center of it all is the People's Table. It's not just a program, it's living, breathing exchange of foodways and stories. Their elders traditional cooking rooted in ancestry, and youth lead workshop on soil health and solar irrigation. We cook together, eat together, and learn together. Still, we can't grow everything ourselves. That's where the Pittsburgh Community Harvest Basket comes in, a digital lifeline that links us directly with small neighborhood producers. This morning, I placed an order for red lentils and fermented mango pickle from a local South Asian co op. The app tells me exactly where my credits are going, how many producers benefit, and which seasonal swaps are trending in the region. It's more than a transaction, it's an act of nourishment and community economics. These choices we make, what we grow, buy, and cook, are supported by campaigns like Our Local Produce. It's made local shopping aspirational through beautiful media and grounded storytelling. It's shown us that buying from co ops isn't just ethical, it's conscious living, it's powerful, it's our new culture. And then there's Food is Freedom, a campaign I hold close to my heart. It reframed food access assistance as love in action. It erased shame and replaced it with pride and collective care. SNAP and EBT aren't hidden anymore. They are embraced, celebrated. We learn to say we take care of each other here. Education has kept us grounded. The root cause food justice curriculum became a turning point, a mirror held to the systems that shaped our hunger. It moved us from blaming individuals to dismantling broken structures. Through documentaries, school programs, and street art, it laid bare the truth and helped us reimagine power. This all unfolded from a seed planted back in 2025. The Roots of Resilience initiative, what began as modest community food forest, became a movement. Now, across Pittsburgh, entire neighborhood are self-sustaining ecosystem, guided by indigenous agriculture practices and local ecological knowledge. These perennial gardens aren't just about food, they are about memory, healing, and justice. They have become classrooms, story circles, and sacred spaces. We are growing a future that feeds us all.
I drive through morning lit streets that blend Pittsburgh's industrial past with its green future as I head to pick up Alicia for our Wisdom Circle meeting. The city has transformed before my eyes over these decades. As I drive past what was once a forgotten industrial corridor, I smile at the gleaming glass structures of the Steel to Sustenance Innovation Hub. The former steel mills that once stood abandoned now pulse with vertical gardens and aquaponic systems. Workers in light coveralls move between towering columns of leafy greens, the water from the fish tanks below circulating nutrients in a perfect symbiosis. It has become our living monument, honoring our industrial past while growing our future. I take a slight detour through Homewood, where the Pittsburgh Food Commons Trust has completely reimagined the neighborhood. What were once vacant lots have transformed into a patchwork of community orchards and medicinal gardens. Indigenous-led growing practices have returned these spaces to abundance. I slow down as I pass a family harvesting pawpaws from one of the food trust's food-bearing trees. No permission needed, no payment expected, just food growing freely for anyone who needs it. My wristband chimes with a notification from the Harvesting Pittsburgh app. The urban farm at Hilltop Elementary has a surplus of summer squash, and 3 community kitchens have already coordinated a pickup. I love watching these real-time exchanges unfold, resources flowing where they're needed, neighbors helping neighbors. What began as a simple coordination tool has become the nervous system of our local food network. This hyperlocal approach has expanded beyond city limits through the Urban-Rural Food Alliance. Just yesterday, I visited one of the regional collection hubs where farmers from across Western Pennsylvania bring their harvests. The direct supply chains we've built have created a resilient regional system that supports both urban food access and small rural producers. It seems impossible to remember a time when we relied on massive corporate supply chains and when our food traveled thousands of miles to reach us. As I pull up to Alicia's home, she's waiting by her garden gate, notes in hand, a basket of fresh herbs tucked under her arm. I tell her I am in awe of her garden's abundance. It's all thanks to the home harvest initiative we pushed through, she says, settling into my car. Remember how hard we fought for those micro grants? Now, nearly every household in the city has some form of food production, even if it's just a window box of herbs or a mushroom log in the pantry. And look how it's expanded, I add, as we drive through her neighborhood. Those micro grants seeded the Cooperative Economy Business Initiative. Now there's a food co-op within walking distance of almost every home in Pittsburgh. Alicia nods enthusiastically. My colleague at the city just received a growback credit to start a new vertical growing project in Hazelwood, she says. Those tax incentives have made all the difference for communities who were historically excluded from food entrepreneurship. We pass the sprawling University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, its rooftop now a productive garden space. The Farm to Institution Pennsylvania program has transformed these big institutions, I observe. 40% local sourcing seemed impossible when we started, but now some places are pushing 70%. The school kids don't even know any different. They expect to see the names of farms on their lunch menus. At the community center, elders arrive with heirloom seeds as we join the Food Sovereignty Wisdom Circle, where Indigenous knowledge keepers have dedicated seats to guide our region's food future. We walk into this gathering of farmers, scientists, business owners, healers, and organizers to discuss expanding food forests along the Three Rivers. Here, Pittsburgh's past and future converge as we continue the story of how a hungry city learned to feed itself with dignity. The circle opens to welcome us as we step into the next chapter of our shared abundance. Now that we've painted this beautiful vision of the future, let us tell you how we got here. First, we had to understand the problem of food insecurity.
We began by situating food insecurity within the broader context of complex systems. Instead of looking at it in isolation, we explored how it's entangled with other issues like poverty, urban infrastructure, social inequity, and environmental degradation. From there, we built out a systems map to visualize these interconnections. We identified the stakeholders, institutions, and policies involved in the food system and looked for patterns, feedback loops, and leverage points. We also mapped out the socio-technical systems influencing access to food, such as transportation, zoning laws, grocery store placement, and community initiatives. We quickly realized that this wasn't a problem with a simple solution. It was a classic example of a wicked problem tangled in layers of historical, social, economic, and environmental factors. To begin unpacking it, we dove into extensive secondary research and started organizing our insights into five overarching categories: infrastructure, technology and science, economics and business, policy and legal, social, and environmental. This framework helped us make sense of the interconnected nature of the problem. We looked at how things like outdated infrastructure and lack of technological access make it harder for communities to get fresh, healthy food. We explored how economic systems and business practices can either reinforce or help alleviate food insecurity. And we also considered the impact of social inequities and environmental challenges. Some key takeaways we carried forward from our research were the need to strengthen local food infrastructure, support small scale producers through technology and policy reform, and address the digital divide that limits access to food systems. We also realized that long term change requires shifting economic incentives and enabling community driven food networks. These insights helped us identify leverage points for systemic intervention.
Now let's shift from the system to the people who actually move the systems. Yeah, if we go to the next slide, we will see the Power Cube framework. We use this framework to map the key stakeholders group in Pittsburgh food insecurity landscape that reveals a complex web of power dynamics. In the stakeholder map, we see the single Black mother who feels every price bump at the checkout line, And then we also see Giant Eagle's executive team that decides which neighborhood gets a store. Also, the Pittsburgh Food Policy Council that sits somewhere in the middle and trying to translate community pain into policy language. Seeing these relationships in one frame reframed the brief for us. The challenge isn't just feed people, it's about brokering trust where power is uneven and leveraging that trust to transform shared hope into rapid pilots and demonstrating that systematic change is achievable. We then drew green lines for shared hopes, orange lines for direct conflict, and gray lines for complex relations. The quick win is that the Food Policy Council and Giant Eagle wants to spotlight local produce and polish their public image. That's a low-hanging fruit pilot, a local first aisle co-branded by nonprofits and the grocer could launch tomorrow. And the hard knot is that Giant Eagle's fear of shrinking margins collides head-on with the single mother's fear of skyrocketing prices. It reminds us that design intervention must de-risk lower pricing for the retailer and preserve dignity for the shoppers. Overall, this map shows us where we can start building trust immediately and where we'll need a deeper, longer negotiations. And then we asked, how did we get here? We used the multi-level perspective, layered Pittsburgh food story from 20th century to today. Each era traded one form of dependency for another. Indigenous reciprocity for colonial rations, farm gardens for factory paychecks, corner markets for highways that bypassed them. Each landscape shock, steel collapse, the Great Recession, COVID-19 ruptured the region just enough for niche innovation to surface, but not enough to flip the system. Zooming in, 2 insights guided our design work. First of all, path dependency is real. The 1930s redlining map still predicts where the food deserts are. That tells us new grocery tech won't stick unless zoning and transit change with it. Windows opportunity keeps cycling. Every crisis births community innovation. Soup kitchens in the 30s, food banks in the 80s. Our job is to design mechanisms that let those niche ideas lock into the mainstream before the next shock closes the window. So the timeline here isn't just a history lesson, it's a strategic forecast. It shows where the cracks are likely to reopen and where our interventions can gain the most leverage.
As a team, we first envisioned what Pittsburgh could look like in 2100 through our living land vision, a future where food systems are rooted in mutual care, regenerative practices, and local abundance. The different levels at which the vision works are the household level, which focuses on sustainable living practices, where families grow their own food and participate in community food sharing networks. The neighborhood level, which emphasizes local food sovereignty with cooperative farming and shared resources. At the city level, the vision calls for a systemic change, including policy support for sustainable agriculture and green infrastructure. Finally, at the planet level, it stresses the need for regenerative environmental practices, ensuring local ecological health on a global scale. From this aspirational future, we worked backward to build the Roots to Resilience roadmap, identifying tangible interventions and milestones across decades that would move us toward that vision. We focused on what systems need to be dismantled and what needs to be maintained to get to this vision. With a focus on awareness and improving access, the team explored alternative economic models and philosophies that emphasize mutual aid, collective stewardship, and long term sustainability. We explored dismantling the stigma around food assistance programs like SNAP and EBT and maintaining food co ops from the current system. Emergent ideas in the exercise centered on shifting power to communities through decentralized food systems, mutual aid networks, and land stewardship rooted in cultural knowledge. These early stage concepts emphasized care, autonomy, and experimentation as tools to imagine and build more just and resilient futures.
Our project proposes a comprehensive ecosystem-based intervention to address food insecurity in Pittsburgh, rooted in community care, cultural relevance, and systemic transformation. At the heart of this ecosystem is the Roots and Resilience Community Food Forest, a place where cultural and nutritional justice take root through community-driven perennial food systems. This core initiative gives rise to the Pittsburgh Food Common Trust, collectively promoting long-term sustainable solutions grounded in equity and stewardship. From this center, the system radiates outward in multiple interconnected directions. Roots to Resilience links with the Food is Freedom campaign, a powerful communication effort to reclaim the narrative around food justice and community care. Together, they advocate for food as a human right and collective responsibility. It also connects to Food Sovereignty Wisdom Circle, a midterm initiative focused on indigenous led local stewardship. This circle unites land, culture, and community to empower generational leadership in food sovereignty. Another offshoot is the Steel to Sustenance Innovation Hub, a visionary transformation of former steel mills sites into thriving center of food production. This initiative blends traditional knowledge with innovation to build a regenerative local food economy. In addition, the People's Table Growing and Cooking with Cultural Roots centers cultural identity through shared meals and learning, linked directly with Farms to Institution Pennsylvania. Together, they reduce food miles and promote sovereignty and support regional agriculture by connecting local producers to institutional buyers. At the household level, the home harvest basket supports direct access to fresh food. It is amplified by Harvesting Pittsburgh app, a platform that reduces food miles and enhances equitable access by embedding fresh local food into everyday neighborhood life. The app also connects back to Farm to Institution Pennsylvania, reinforcing the hyperlocal closed loop food network with support from local delivery and refrigeration services. Furthermore, Farm to Institution Pennsylvania is strategically connected to the Urban Rural Food Alliance, strengthening links between cities and rural farms. This alliance facilitates stable markets and shared infrastructure and equitable food access while scaling the model statewide and nationally. Finally, the Grow Back Credit Initiative evolves into Urban Rural Food Alliance model using tax credits and shared infrastructure to reduce the cost of urban farming. This ensures affordability, equity, and resilience across Pittsburgh's evolving food system.
To advance a just, resilient, and culturally grounded food system, we propose a network of interconnected initiatives that unfold across immediate, midterm, and long-term interventions, all working together to address food insecurity and reclaim community power. Immediate actions to ground the system are faster and easier to implement, such as social media and education campaigns, direct-to-business and consumer apps, and tax credit policies. Mid to long-term systemic transformation comes from relationships, which take longer to cultivate, like relationships across industries, geographic communities, and identities. Together, these interventions build a closed-loop, hyperlocal ecosystem rooted in cultural relevance, equity, and regenerative practices. They aren't just programs, they're pathways to sovereignty, resilience, and collective care for Pittsburgh's future. Thank you.